And I don't know, a lot of you are probably local fire chiefs. We actually have all of your local weather forecast offices across the state, Goodland, Dodge City, I'm going to leave somebody out, Wichita, us, Hastings if you're in the north central part of the state. You can always contact us if you need information about weather. Like if something goes and you need to know what winds are right now, feel free to call the office. We can give you, information on the spot. We're moving into a model where we have people on staff. That's pretty much what their job that day is to do decision support, is to be there for whatever the hot topic of the day is. And as Chip pointed out, as we get into spring, a lot of those days it's going to be fire because it's going to be so dry. And the pattern that Chip was showing you is also pretty conducive to when we get that jet that dips down over the central U.S. We tend to get one system, then another system, then another system. I mean, you'll notice it's going to be 60 on Saturday. Well, it's not warm out there today. So we keep getting system after system. Those systems tend to bring winds. They bring wind shifts. We're looking at some elevated fire danger again on Saturday because it's going to get warm and windy, and then a front will come through and cool it down again. So, but we have somebody on staff all the time. We're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Tip your waitresses. So you can call us anytime. If we get to a point as those situations start to elevate, like in Anderson Creek, it's entirely possible we may have someone on staff with the state EOC just doing weather. So we're pretty in tune to what's going on, but don't hesitate to call us if you have a question. We also do spot forecasts for wildfires. Anybody that's got a wildfire, you can call our office. You can submit a request on the web. Sometimes what happens is if it's just getting started and it's a little chaotic, they'll ask us, they'll call the office and say, can you give me some weather information, and we can do that. And then if you need us to, we could submit it. But you are also welcome to do that on the internet. And anybody who has a wildfire can submit a request for a spot. So you can just go in there, tell us what you want, click some buttons, click your spot on the map, send it. And our policy is to get that out within 15 to 30 minutes. So if you need winds right away, make sure you call. But if you need winds for a longer period of time, maybe you're doing mop-up. Maybe you had a fire and you're worried about cow patties and tree stumps that are still smoldering overnight, and you want to know what it's going to do. A spot forecast would help you out for that for sure. So that's just some of the resources that we have, and I can answer any questions about that. So those of you who are in our forecast area, we put out a product for years called the Rangeland Fire Danger, and we've been sort of sitting on that product. This is just one of 4 tables that I'm shifting topics here. Sorry, topic shift to what I was going to bring to you today regarding what I had to present to you. But this table here is just the last of 4 tables of a equation that came out probably in the 80s for fire danger. So it takes temperature twice and sky condition twice and how dry the grass is, and it spits out a number. Okay, and it's pretty good most of the time. My problem with it has always been that if you look at this table, the last number at the top of this is wind speed, and the last number says 27 plus. Okay, so I feel like there's a whole half of a table here that's missing where you could get to where you have pretty green grass and pretty high wind, and we're not expressing fire danger very well. When we joined the Red Flag program back in 2006, I believe, we have different criteria for red flags. So if we get a certain amount of wind and a certain amount of relative humidity and the fuels are dry, then we start issuing red flags. Well, we're trying to push all those things together. And if any of you are from bigger states that use the National Fire Danger Rating System, the NFDRS, I can see a couple of nods. The goal is to get to using that across the Plains states. The problem is that while there are 50 observations in Colorado, there have been 5 or 3 in Kansas. But thanks to folks like Chip, the density of those observations are getting better, they're getting bigger, and so the goal is over the next 2 years to get us to the NFDRS. So in the meantime, we've decided to sort of get going on that path because the Grassland Fire Danger Index is a pretty close approximation to that. So the offices across Kansas and South Dakota and Nebraska and parts of Iowa and parts of, well, us. I think that's it. Am I missing anybody? Missouri's not going to do it because they don't have a lot of grass, I don't think. So we're going to switch to this Grassland Fire Danger Index, and we'll use that as an approximation for our red flag warnings. So that's going to bring some of that information together. We have had this discussion before. If you Google prairie or tall grass prairie, you'll get 10 different maps of where the prairie actually is. What's short grass and what's tall grass. Gotta find my clicker. And what's mixed grass. Wichita. How many of you are in Wichita's area? They've been doing this for a while. They've been in the Grassland Fire Danger Index for a while. The problem is that they were using one index. I don't know where I'm pointing. And it didn't go so well for some of our counties, so they ran like a 2-year study, and they came up with better numbers. So initially it was just this middle column for mixed grass. And so what they did was they ran a study and they came up with 3 different categories, one for short, one for mixed grass, or mid-grass, and one for tall grass. And so by adjusting that index a little bit, it'll be a better fit for as you go across the state. So this is a I didn't put any numbers on this map. This is Wichita's county warning area. So Wichita's not in here. So they've got short grass to their west, mixed grass in the middle, and then the tall grass there in the east, which is more in line with where the Flint Hills are. So as you go across, that'll adjust to which kind of grass you're dealing with. I put up some math for you today, so you can go home and say you did math today. The only important thing that you need to see on that is that this equation takes into account the curing of the grass, the temperature, wind speed, and relative humidity. So it's got 4 different things in it. So the number itself isn't terrifically important. It's where it falls in terms of low, moderate, high, extreme. And you'll see we have a catastrophic category up here. That made some people get a little nervous, but they ran that. That's the 99th percentile. That's like the worst case scenario. And the idea being is that if you see a catastrophic fire danger in the forecast, that's a huge heads up. I mean, you should be getting worried at extreme, but catastrophic that's like historic. That's like Anderson Creek type stuff. So hopefully that will give you a heads up more than 1 day out. So right now our range is only 1 day. So purple is bad. Different ways you may see this show up. Right now there's a text product. That's Wichita's product. The nice thing about it is it gives you 6 days, and it gives you a forecast every 3 hours. So you can get some idea of when it's getting bad. It's unusual it gets bad in the middle of the night, but I guess it could. Usually it gets really bad in the afternoon when things dry out and it gets breezy and it gets hot, or warm, I guess I should say. It comes out as a regular index on the web here with the colored categories across the top. Again, the number not so important so much as the color, because the color tells you the category. And then we're moving to an example in which I just had their section filled in here, but it would be across the state like Chip's example. And that would give you an indication of what it's like across the state. So it gives you a forecast for more days. The GFDI, I ran them in a side-by-side comparison a couple of years ago. And the rangeline fire danger performed better at low humidities, but the grassland fire danger performs better at high winds. And our big events are the big wind days. So now that they've made some adjustments to it, I think it'll work out a lot better for us, at least in the eastern part of the state. So, all right. What else? So how can you help? Until we get to, we eventually are going to get satellite data, and I can't remember what it's called. The growing season index? Is that what goes into the NFDRS? We will be eventually getting satellite data that tells us a good percentage of what's dead and what's living. But until then, we actually need observers. So people like you, maybe you actually own land and are actually out traipsing around in the grasslands and can kind of tell us how much green is in the grass. It's actually a really simple process. But we need about 5 to 6 people across each of our county warning areas, so 30, 40 people across the state, to either call us, and there's even a way you can do it online, but to send us an observation. In the winter, it's all dead. It's dead now. It's 0. Everything's secured. We don't need a number. But as we go into the spring, we'll need some observations to see how fast things green up, because it greens up differently in different parts of the state, and depending on what kind of grass you have, right? So we'll need some observers for that. You guys are good candidates for that, so I'm hitting you up for. And we have I think, did you bring the booklet with it, or did we forget to bring it? Because it's online. Chad's got it. So we have a copy of that curing booklet if you guys want to take a look, and might want to volunteer to call in. Especially, I mean, you have a vested interest in it. You know, if you want to know if things are drying out faster than we think they are, then we certainly need your feedback on that. So.